Hello everyone and welcome to Rating Chess Openings Part 4, and today we have the very fun Vienna game and its sidekick, the Vienna Gambit. Starting out, this comes after we go pawn up to e4, black responds pawn to e5, very common, and we now play knight to c3 here, marking the Vienna game, and let's start off the pros like usual. Starting out, we already have good principles going here. We're controlling the center with our pawn, and we also have a very well placed knight defending our center preemptively, but more importantly, what can black play here in response? They have two main options, those being knight to f6, at which point we can then play a move pawn to f4 going into the Vienna Gambit, or their other option here is knight to c6. And this move, I can guarantee you, without any stupid mistakes, the worst thing you'll get out of the opening is an even position that is still very fun. And after you keep developing with bishop c4, black can mess up pretty easily pretty quick here. A very common move is bishop c5, and this is the copycat variation. We can now play queen to g4 here. A very odd move, but this immediately attacks our g7 pawn, which would not be good because then the rook would be hanging in the corner. So pretty much everybody here thinks to go queen to f6, defending the pawn and attacking our pawn on f2, but here we unleash a bombshell with knight to d5. This is the Meitner-Mises gambit, and after they capture, we just slide over, and we're doing incredible here. There is no checkmate because the bishop actually just covers here. That would be a stupid mistake, but more importantly, we're now threatening this fork on c7, which would be very bad, but also we're going to capture this pawn on g7, which would also be very bad, and black must play with insane accuracy to even survive this position. Their only move to not lose instantly is king to f8, which like nobody under like 1400 is ever going to find this move, and even still here after like knight to h3 attacking their queen, their only safe square is over on d4, and after a simple pawn to d3 here, we're going to go pawn c3, trap their queen, and they have to play with, once again, insane accuracy to even survive this position. This is a complete domination, and you should be able to win a massive amount of your games in that position, but if they do not fall into that, they instead develop with a move like a knight to f6 here, you'll simply play pawn to d3, and your plan here is so simple. You're going to go pawn to f4, quickly develop castle, and you're going to have a big attack with really not that many problems. For example, black's most common moves here are to go bishop to c5, and we now strike in the center with f4. The idea is actually here, well, they can't really take because then we'll simply take back, we get free development, but we're likely going to push up to f5, making this bishop complete garbage, and that can look something like this. After black goes like pawn to d6, we can develop with knight to f3 here, and after like castles, a very nice pawn to f5 here. Now this bishop here is going to get completely shut in. They'll have to play like bishop d7, and now this bishop goes to g5. Our position is flowing so nicely. We have an extremely strong pin here. Our knight can potentially come to d5 here and help attack that. And because of how shut in black is on their king's side, a large attack over there is going to prove to be very, very powerful and really hard to prevent. And because of that, you are going to be dominating in so many of these positions. And even their very, very best line here, which is knight to a5, to try and chase our bishop away, you can simply just back up to b3. And after this trade, all that's really happened is we now have the open a file, which really cannot be a bad thing for us. And now black's best tries to strike in the center with d5 immediately, but simply you just capture, knight captures back, and now simply knight to f3. You're just developing, going to quickly castle, and you have a nice e-file which you can quickly take. You're doing very well there, and you also have other options. You can play a move here. You can just ignore this completely and just go like knight g to e2. And this trade is not even bad for you because you now have an extreme control on d5, which black simply cannot match. All in all, these knight to c6 lines are proving to be nothing but dominating for us. So now let's move into the other lines here, which are knight to f6, and we can now play pawn to f4 going into the Vienna Gambit. Now first off, at the beginner level, this is an absolute murdering kill house station. If black captures, which is so common to beginner level, you now push up to e5, and you are dominating from this point on. You are attacking their knight, but we're controlling all the squares and go to with our knight and our queen as well, meaning it's forced to back up to g8, which is simply disgusting, and there are so many ways they can go wrong. First off, a very common trap here, if they try to stop this with this pin here, a very fun trap is we'll simply unpin with queen to e2, knight must drop back, no option, we now develop knight to f3, and the most common move here is pawn to d6, which simply loses after knight to d5 attacking the queen. It must back up. Now the beautiful sacrifice, knight takes on c7, getting this fork, and if they capture, we win their queen with pawn captures on d6. Discover check, we're attacking their queen, they cannot block because we'll simply take, and we're just completely winning in that position. But if they don't fall for the trap, they do actually just back up right away, we are still dominating here. We have to control his check with knight to f3, but we're simply going to play a move like pawn to d4. We have a ton of development, we're completely dominating the center, this pawn is just easy pickings for us, we're going to take it back right away, and we are dominating in this position. And here come my problems. If they know the mainline move here, which is pawn to d5, this is where I would consider the only real con of this opening to really be. Here, we're going to capture on e5, and after knight takes back on e4, we can make things interesting with a move queen to f3. Now, don't get me wrong, the majority of people here will play knight takes on c3, and in these positions, we're actually doing quite well because our plan is simple. We'll go pawn to d4, we'll go bishop d3, and then knight to e2, and we actually have a nice amount of potential attack on their king side. We can quickly castle, and we are doing great in these positions. But my problem is the other two lines that they can play. The first one is knight to c6 here. This move doesn't defend their knight and center or do anything, but they're threatening to capture the pawn, or more likely come into d4 and attack our queen and the fork, which could be really bad. So we have to play a move here, bishop to b5, pinning their knight to their king, and if they know the line here, which is knight takes, pawn takes back, and now the maneuver queen to h4 check, pawn blocks, and queen to e4 check. This move simply forces a queen trade, and after this happens, this is a basically even endgame. And while we're not doing bad here, it is even. It is going to be very boring, most likely, and these positions tend to actually favor black because our king is quite in the open, so these positions are really just not going to be very fun at all. Their other move here that is not fun is pawn to f5. This is the very rare Bardelabine variation, but it is really just not that good for us. We cannot en passant because a simple knight takes back, we're just not doing that great here. Our queen is pretty awkward. We don't really have a good pawn in the center. And the best move here is to go pawn to d3. And after this trade, black can now play a move pawn up to d4. And now these positions just really do not favor us because we can't capture the pawn, because then this check, and we're going to be forced to lose castling rights, which is not terrible, but you know, it's not fun, it's not good. Our king is very awkward there. The other move we can try here is to go queen to g3, which is the best move, but this does allow black to win a pawn with pawn takes on c3, and after like bishop to e2 here, we are fine. We are going to try to castle, but more than likely, black is going to be able to play a move like bishop c5, prevent us from castling, and these positions tend to favor black a lot more than us, which really is just not that good. And the awkward pawn on f5 turns out to be really good at blocking us from doing any real attacking. Alright, well, with that all said, let's get on to the tier list. Overall, the Vienna is a fantastic opening that promises an interesting game pretty much every single time that you play it. It is also completely sound, and especially at the beginner level, the Vienna Gambit is an absolute murder weapon. My only cons are that some of the lines in the Vienna Gambit main line are not going to be great for us, but with correct play, the worst thing you'll get is an even position, and even then, those only occur in less than 1% of Vienna games. So overall, the Vienna is a fantastic practical weapon, and personally my favorite opening, so I'm gonna have to put this all the way up there at the S rank with a 10 out of 10. Alright, well, thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a fantastic day, and I will see you next time.